Hi, I'm Erica Lukes. This is Expanding Frontiers, and thank you for being with me. I am very excited that I've got a great group of people that listen to me. Even though I'm broadcasting on Fridays usually or Saturdays, which I did because I just had an amazing mini vacation. I needed to get out of town, and it was so much fun. I'll show you a few pictures from my journey a couple days ago in a moment. But first, I want to give a shout out to Mario, who is here every week with me behind the scenes, who is a show supporter and a good friend of mine, even though we've never met. But I really want to say thank you, Mario, for all that you've done for me over the years. I also want to give a shout out to my colleague, Jack Brewer, who writes the UFO Trail blogspot.com. You can check out his incredible work over the years. And for me to collaborate with someone like Jack has been an incredible experience. And with his strengths and my strengths, we make a very formidable team. You can go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org to check out our nonprofit, to donate and get involved and get on the email list so you're receiving all of the blogs and information about our new work. We're on to a couple, well, actually more than a couple. We've got a few good leads on things that we are actively pursuing. And I look forward to, in the next few months, putting out more information like we have with regard to Skinwalker Ranch and taxpayer money used for Phenomicon in that area. Again, there are lots of areas to dig that have been very exciting for me as a researcher, for somebody who is seen, unfortunately, behind or fortunately behind the veil of the UFO world, and identified people who are strictly there to grift, promote narratives that are false, that eventually lead to some pretty dark places for people that don't understand what's going on. It is my goal with this show, as it was with UFO Classified, to make sure that you're getting information, that you're following me on my journey. I am open about that, and hopefully you can use my information to make sure that you're stepping a little bit more delicately into areas where I've just stepped in it with both feet. And so I just wanted to thank the people that support me from all over the world. Thanks, you guys, and Simon. And I want to say hi to Amy and Jack and Mystico and all of my people. And Peter. I want to just give a shout out to Peter because he helps me on social media. So I appreciate all of you guys very much. We have created this really cool, cohesive group of people who are intelligent, who are looking for information that is grounded in reality. And that is something that 99% of the UFO world cannot say, pretty much. So I'm very proud that we do that here, and we've got a great community of people to do that as well. So now, after my long little bit of babbling, I want to show you, before I bring in Rachel, it was just going to be a fun show, but I want to show you some photos from my journey, which I did post on Twitter, but I want to show all of you guys this. So we actually went up around, well, we went around the whole Great Salt Lake, which is a huge expanse. And so there you can see the little Artemis sign there. We were out inside of a definite McDonald Douglas. I'm having a brain cramp, you guys. It's been a long day. But we were there, drove by and saw the massive expanse. And then we also came across these little kind of abandoned farmhouses. And when I saw this, it really it struck me as something that was like Skinwalker Ranch. And I was with my friend, and I kept joking and saying, okay, literally, you could find any abandoned property and turn it into a paranormal hub. And except for this is like a lot cooler. So I definitely think that just it's better visually. Let me just say that. And then we also were on the road. There's Tree Mountain. You can kind of barely see the sign. We could have gone to Tree Mountain, but no, we got lost and went to Idaho, and then back to Utah, and then eventually we so that was great fun. And then this is like the most amazing sunset that we saw. It was just really cool. And this is, I mean, again, like the stellar landscape is just so awe-inspiring that I saw this, and I'm just watching the clouds change and all of these beautiful things. And I definitely have lots of inspiration for my paintings coming up. So I'm super, super stoked about that. So anyway, yeah. So I want to add my friend Rachel and get the picture out of there. Rachel, there you are, but we've got the sunset, which is gorgeous. So how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. I wanted to thank you for your patience. And I wanted to say that it has been really, really cool for me to get in chat room and to see people like yourself in there. And I remember just reading some of the things that you put in chat and being very just I loved it. You're it's inspiring. It's really comforting to see people who have kind of a thoughtful mindset, who are grounded in reality, but then also have fun exploring things. And so I remember that time when I said, "Hey, we need to connect." And then we did, and I was just on your show last week. It aired, or actually a couple days, 3 or 4 days ago, and that was probably one of the more in-depth and very candid interviews that I've ever done. And so I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about things as they've happened to me and experiences in my life. And that was a really cool thing. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being on. I think it was actually a huge honor, and I'm just so incredibly thrilled to be on this show. Like you have no idea.
Oh,
I
that's so
mean,
happy.
I'm deeply honored to
Thank
be
you.
to be on your show. We've got Jack Brewer in the chat, and I love all the people in the chat. This is such a great scene. It's what I've dreamt of for a really long time. Like 10 years ago, I think I used to kind of fantasize about like, what will the future of UFOs be like? Will it be something where I can actually be involved? I mean, I could have been involved back then, but I didn't. Nowadays, everything is so more accessible. It's so much more accessible,
I love
I
that.
think.
And I mean, it makes me feel really, really happy to know that that's how you feel. So thank you for that. Like to know that there is a group of people out here that, and you're doing, you have two podcasts that you do, and we're going to talk a little bit about those, but also, like the Invisible Night School, some of the other people that are out there that are making really good contributions. Jeff Knox, I was so excited to have Jeff on the show. And yay. Oh, yeah. Is that your Carl Jung book?
Yeah, it is.
Sweet.
Oh, I've got a bunch of other ones here too, just to show off. I have this one,
Ooh,
and I don't know why I bought
Blind
this.
Betty. So what is that? Because I'm telling you, Mama's a little needs her glasses.
This is Operation Thunderchild by Nick Pope.
Oh my. Yeah, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
novel. It's a novel.
I can't unhear that.
I think he's written multiple novels. I'm pretty sure.
Operation Thunderchild.
Yes.
Okay, hang on. I just need to like collect my thoughts because clearly they're never going to be the same again. Okay, how is that?
I haven't read it. I will, though. I will. I'll
Okay,
let
read.
everyone know how it
Like,
is.
will you read the description of it? Mama has got some things going on in her mind.
Okay. I wish I could do like a Nick Pope voice, but because he has this funny way of talking. Like he's so like earnest. But it has this kind of like X-Filesy earnestness to it. I guess I don't know. But yeah,
He's very
the
good, and I will say that I was on, I don't even think this TV show ever aired, but I had a great time with him because we were both kind of intersecting. We were interviewed on the same TV show, and I mean he was very lovely to me.
yeah.
I don't, that's as a personal interaction, but I definitely question many things. So, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think he's he probably, I mean, I've never met him or anything, but he seems like he would be a really nice guy. He just seems really credulous to me, to be quite frank, not in a mean way or anything, but yeah, I think he really easily believes things, basically.
Yeah, it's something's happening there. Okay, so read the description because I need to know this. I won't be able to sleep unless I know about Operation Underchild or
The Royal Air Force seems to be the target of an unknown enemy, an enemy possessing technology that makes Britain's most advanced aircraft seem primitive by comparison. As the situation escalates and the RAF suffers crippling losses at the hands of this mysterious foe, conflicting theories abound, and the government is forced to cast its net wider as it searches for answers. This is a critical situation of the utmost severity, yet as increasingly disturbing incidents concerning UFOs and abductions are reported, the skeptical establishment, capital E, is forced to accept that a hostile extraterrestrial force may be at work.
dun dun dun. Oh Lord. Well, I mean, is that like any different than what he says on Fox and Friends?
I mean, the premise sounds exactly like what he claims in real life, actually.
Very interesting. Yeah, Jacques Vallée had his little go with writing fictional novels, pretty much all of them actually, but did I say that out loud? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That is interesting. So you've got that, like pick up another couple books that you have.
I've got this one here. This is
What?
William Corliss.
Okay. Oh,
Usual Natural Phenomena. It's really
I
fun book.
have not seen that cover before.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I got this one, Apparitions. Celia Green and Charles McCreary make some excellent, very cogent, well-supported points, I think. I've got some Jenny Randall's books.
Nice.
Star Children. I really like this book, although I don't, it's a book that I need to read again. This is one of my favorites, as Jeff Knox knows. The Myth and Mystery of UFOs by Thomas E. Bullard. Wonderful, wonderful work.
I love it that you can just pick up your books and show them to me now. This is good stuff.
Yeah, this one, Japandemonium. These are translations of Toriyama Sekiyan's collections of yokai. So, this has a lot of really famous pictures that you can see online in a number of places. And it has a lot of the really famous pictures of, weird onibi and weird spook lights. And there's even a picture of a luminous heron in there, or egret or something. Yokai
I thought you said a luminous Karen.
No, a luminous Karen. Oh my God! Yes, I'm waiting to run into a luminous Karen in the park.
I don't think they make them in luminous, do they?
This is another one. These are both translated. That one and this one are both translated by Hiroko Yoda and Matt Alt.
Wow.
This is a really good collection of verbal folklore from Hawaii. Folklore, no.
Ooh, that's cool.
As you can see, there's a fireball right there.
Wow.
This is, I think everyone should read this. Anyone who's interested in the unexplained or UFOs, varieties of anomalous experience. Really great survey of all of the anomalistic studies in psychology and medicine. This is the second edition, put out in 2014.
Okay, that is something that I don't have and I'm going to have to get.
Yeah, Edsel Cardania and Stephen J. Lynn and Stanley Krippner edited that. It's really good.
Can you read the description of that, if you don't mind, if there is?
Yeah. For much of the 20th century, unusual perceptions and sensations, radical alterations of consciousness, and other extraordinary subjective experiences were ignored as legitimate topics of study in mainstream psychology. Recent years, however, have witnessed a burgeoning interest in the scientific study of anomalous experiences. In this updated edition, the editors have invited experts to provide definitive reviews and analyses of a wide range of anomalous experiences, from commonly documented sensations and perceptions like synesthesia, lucid dreaming, out of body experiences, and auditory and visual hallucinations, to rarer and more seemingly inexplicable experiences such as anomalous healing, past lives, near-death experiences, mystical experiences, and even alien abductions. The book makes a compelling case for the inclusion of these marginalized and under-recognized experiences as not merely incidental, but essential to our understanding of human psychology. And I love that kind of, that is, you know, I have for a long time felt like, yeah, no, if we're talking about these weird experiences, they're not aberrations, they're not pathologies, they're actually a result of the way that the human mind is supposed to work. That's the way that I see it, That's what I believe.
Can you tell me who published that book?
Yeah, that's the APA, actually.
Okay.
The
that would be, I mean, it reminds me of something that Bigelow Foundation would have funded back in the day.
No, this is all covering like peer-reviewed studies. It's
good.
Yeah, it's very serious, very rigorous attempt at representing. And the other thing too is that they don't talk about negative anomalous experiences in this volume. They just focus on the ones that have like positive or beneficial aspects to them. So they don't talk about sleep paralysis experiences, for example. So the main sort of one of their sort of main recommendations, I think, is approaching it from a medical standpoint of how can we use this in treatment, to help people, and not how do we, it's not about proving whether or not the afterlife exists or proving whether or not alien, non-human intelligences exist, but rather just using this information to benefit people from a medical standpoint. So I don't always agree with the APA. I have a lot of problems with psychology personally, but I do believe in psychology. I think that it does yield good results sometimes, right? And sometimes you can kind of be like, okay, you read a study and you're just like, this doesn't make sense what they're saying. I think with some studies like David Hufford, I don't have a copy of this book, and I would be great to just make a montage of every time that I say David Hufford or something, like on the Daily Show. Oh, wow, what does Rachel think of David Hufford? And then just me saying David Hufford for 20 seconds. The Terror That Comes in the Night is a really fundamentally important book for the study of the anomalous. And I think that it's the kind of book that anyone who really wants to understand any aspect of the unexplained, including UFOs, should read, because what he did was he used folkloristics. David Hufford is a doctor, but a medical doctor, but what he actually did was used folkloristics to study sleep paralysis experiences, because what happened was he had one when he was an undergrad. And he did an exhaustive survey of literature, art throughout history, as well as all of the psychological literature, to find anything to match what had happened to him, using very strict characteristics, basically. And he was like, okay, well, there's a clear pattern that this is recurring, like the exact same kind of thing is recurring in art. But psychologists weren't able to describe it at all until David Hufford came along. And what the terror that comes in the night is it's the result of an epidemiological study. So in other words, he was trying to understand how does the sleep paralysis experience spread throughout populations, and the way he did that was by collecting stories from students in Newfoundland, where there's a strong old hag, tradition, right? Just like I was talking with you over the phone about how there's a tradition in Mormonism. It's not that well known, but he talks about it in that book as well, having to do with sleep paralysis experiences and apparitions. And then so he did studies in Newfoundland, and then he did studies specific to like more Midwestern Canadian secular populations. I don't remember the exact populations, but he focused specifically on populations that don't have a sleep paralysis tradition, and he found that that in both types of populations, the rate is the same. And there's been many studies since then replicating that. So we know that sleep paralysis experiences are ubiquitous beyond the shadow of a doubt, because you can replicate what David Huffer did, and you will find similar results. That roughly, he said 17%. I think the rate has slightly changed since then, but yeah, somewhere around 1 in 5 people will have a sleep paralysis experience sometime in their life, at least one, And so, anecdotal evidence in terms of just being like, well, my friend said this, so I'm going to be like, yeah, well, I believe that this, that's what anecdotal evidence is. It's taking someone's account that's unsupported and not really substantiating it in any way. But if you're talking about verbal lore, though, I mean, in a broader sense, in a more general sense of anecdote, of just verbal, someone saying something, that's used in science all the time. And David Hufford actually studied people's reports of anomalous experiences and was able to determine from that what kind of experience that is and how common it is. And then from there, scientists were able to figure out some of the etiology of it, what causes it physiologically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we should not rely on anecdotal evidence, but that doesn't mean you can't study phenomena using people's personal reports. You can do that, and people have been doing it for a really long time, since the 19th century, So, yeah.
Oh, that's
The Terror
fascinating.
That Comes in the Night, great book.
Yeah, you know what? I have that, and I have not read that. I mean, obviously, having thousands of books here within my reach, that is something that. Thank you for inspiring me to get that out and reading that later tonight, because that sounds really fascinating.
Well, I'm not very well read. I'm not going to lie. I imagine you probably have read a lot more books than I have, Erica, and I really mean that. I kind of try to go for efficiency.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I try to, yeah.
And so let's go back to, and thank you for going through your books. That's really, really cool. I love that.
Those are just some of them.
I imagine. I'm only sure. Okay, pull up one more book. Let's see what else. One more thing.
Oh, no. I don't have anything in reach. Okay.
Dang it. Okay. Well, you had...
Oh, wait. I do. Oh, I haven't read this one either yet. Oh, whoa. Oh, you know what? I have a bunch of books here. They're hiding. Okay. They're hiding under the chaos.
You sound like me. Okay. Tell me about that. And I am so sorry. I keep turning off my phone and it keeps ringing. We're not sure what's happening here, but.
No, it's okay. Yeah, this is all about Mesopotamian ghosts, accounts of ghosts and ghost magic from way back in the day between the two rivers.
That's cool.
Yeah. And Irving Finkel's, you can find lots of videos of him on YouTube. He's just a really charming scholar of Mesopotamian literature.
Cool. Wow, thank you. And I just have to say thank you, Collie, for the super sticker. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
really cool. But oh my gosh, so that's that's amazing. Okay, pull out another book because you seriously have got me going down new rabbit holes and needing to get more books. As if I need to get more books, but
Okay, well, here's just a rando like monster sea serpents. This is with Lauren Coleman and Patrick Huig. Another rando. You probably recognize this one. This is
oh
the
yeah.
UFO book, Jerome Clark. What else do we got? Oh, you know what? This is not related to the paranormal, but it's a really cool book I found at the bookstore. Opie Kachina dolls.
Oh, very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Paranormal adjacent. Some really great art in here.
Oh,
And then
fascinating.
this is just a popular paperback. Oh, if I can pull it out here. Unidentified Colin Dickey. I'm using this for my series, The Depth Parade. I did one part in that series, and I never got back to it, but I do eventually plan to get back to it. The Depth Parade is it's a little mini series on the Earth all about monsters. So I've done an episode about not real life monsters, but monsters known to exist. And then the next episode is going to be about cryptids. And then the last episode, well, actually, there might be more than 3 episodes, but the last part of it is going to be about the much more hairy, figuratively speaking, hairy monsters that aren't cryptids. They're not corporeal. So
That sounds great. I mean,
yeah.
that how fun and adventurous, and I mean, it just creative. It's really cool. I like that. And I mean, I like the knowledge. Like, I like, and this is like why when I saw you in chat, I'm like, okay, Rachel just has an understanding of things, and I really, really appreciate that. And even Jack just said you seem like you're very well read, and that's awesome. So I want to go back. I want to just for my sake, for the listeners' sake, can you go back to like your childhood and give us some information about that if you feel comfortable, and talk about let's talk a little bit about religion, because we had a great conversation on your show about religion and faith and belief, and then how you got into the UFO topic.
Yeah, well, I was raised Mormon, and I left the church when I was 14. So this is kind of a story that I wanted to tell on your show, which I haven't really shared it with anyone, I don't think, except for maybe some really close friends. But honestly, I don't even know if it actually happened. It could be a memory that I fabricated or something at some point, but like why I would have done so, I have no idea. But I'm pretty sure something like it actually happened, and maybe it just got twisted in my head. But so when I was 8 years old, and I was getting baptized, I was in the bathroom, getting ready to be baptized, and I was baptized in like this font, like a plexiglass sort of cubicle shaped font, so you could see into it, if I remember correctly, and it was in a church. And so in Mormonism, you get fully submerged in water, like the way that the way that you see people get baptized in rivers. That's how Mormons do it, for the audience. And so my brothers. So I'm trans, right? I'm a trans woman. So I was in the boys' bathroom, and my brothers came in, or they said from the door or something. They're like, "Hey, it's time to go. We gotta go," or something like that. And I'm like, okay, let me just get a drink of water first. I'm really thirsty. You know how you get thirsty, like in your throat or in your mouth,
Mhm.
and it's just like it's not an emergency, but it's like I should really drink some water before I do whatever I do next. It was that kind of thing. And they're like, no, we don't have time. And I'm like, no, come on, I just need a drink of water. And they dragged me out of the bathroom. That's the story. I think that it's just incredibly weird. I think that I do not have an explanation for that. Uh, except, that I probably distorted my memory, over time, and I don't actually know exactly what actually happened, you know. But had it happened that way, I do not have any kind of explanations for why my brothers would have dragged me out of the bathroom before I could get a drink of water. So
Thank you for sharing that.
yeah, I know that it's not like it's not like a Loch Ness monster story or something like that, but I have other stories like that where I've had these experiences that they're more strange from a spiritual perspective, I guess. But yeah, so I left the church when I was 14. At this time, I was living with my mom in Japan, in Nishinomiya, Japan, and I just I was just walking around one day, I think, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I should definitely leave the church, And I think part of my thought process was at that time was seeing Japanese religion and being kind of like directly exposed to that sort of. Um, it really made me be like, yeah, there's no way that this could be the one true church, like. And it seems like there are all these other religions that are way cooler, but like there's no, it just didn't, that was one of the reasons. But I mean, I also left for kind of the same reasons you did, that I saw people doing things and saying things that were ethically not right, that they were being too authoritarian about their views of women and sexuality and stuff like that.
And so, I mean, and how did your family handle that, your decision?
Okay, yeah. So my dad, who passed away about 6 or 7 years ago, was early on in my transition. After it was maybe like 6 months after I came out as trans, although I've always been trans for as long as I remember. Yeah, so my dad was he was bipolar and he was really into the woo. He got me into Philip K. Dick. I read a lot of Philip K. Dick when I was young because I love Philip K. Dick, and my dad got me into it. But my dad, there was this one time we went to like solstice celebration at like the property of the guy who like was trying to sue over the what is that? Dang it! It's I think it's in
Not the Bundy.
No, it's a fossil. There was this huge controversy about this fossil they found in a river in the Pacific Northwest. I'm really bad with remembering details of things. Someone in the chat probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. But they found like a skull from like 6,000 or so years ago or something like that. So there was this huge controversy. Like there was a local Indian tribe who was suing, and then there was another like this Aryan group who were suing because they were trying to claim that like the first people in this land were ancient Norse people or something.
Yeah.
And we like years later, my dad was like, yeah, you remember that time we went to this thing that was this guy's property or something. But he was not like, my dad was, he was just kind of like racist without realizing it. He wasn't like going out of his way to be racist, like that kind of thing. He was more like sort of like boomer, not making the full effort racist. But so everything was about my dad growing up, and we grew up in the Mormon church. My mom comes from a Mormon family. I think my dad converted to Mormonism and had a lot of Mormon family, but it was never, being in our family was never like a normal Mormon experience, because we were constantly having to deal with my father all the time. And what was your question again? I totally lost track.
But I mean, just like your family and how they viewed you leaving the church and what was happening in that time period.
Yeah. So, by that time, two of my siblings left the church. One of my brothers is still in the church, and he married into the church, or he married, someone from a singles ward, and they have a family now. They live here in town. We don't see each other that often, but we get along. And as a rule, yeah, Mormons are actually extremely friendly, kind people, and there's a lot of really warm-hearted Mormons. Like, I really mean that. But anyway, at that time, nobody really had a problem with it. My dad, when I told him, he was like, well, you might want to think about not doing that, because once you leave, then you're you don't have anything, or something like that. You don't, when you're not, you need something like that. You lose your community if you leave the church. But he didn't have a problem with me leaving the church, and I think he might have already been excommunicated by that point. So
okay, and so is Drew in chat is mentioning Kennewick Man?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Drew. Thank you.
I'm going to look that up. And so why?
So really, yeah, the Kennewick Man story is really interesting.
Okay, thank you very much. I will look that up. And so why, if you don't mind, why was your father excommunicated? Because that does take, that's not something that happens unless, something pretty severe happens, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, I think what he did was he went to the bishop of the ward, and he just said exactly how he felt about stuff. I don't know exactly what he said, but and I think that at that time, he had some calling that was put him, pretty close to the bishopric, but yeah, he basically got himself excommunicated, pretty much. He was going through a midlife crisis, and he divorced my mom to leave with the woman that he was cheating on, I'm going into this because I think it's interesting. I think it's related to well, I don't know why I'm doing this. I mean,
appreciate your candor. I do appreciate your candor, and
well, actually, he was trying to be an ayahuasca shaman or something. Like, he was trying to incorporate ayahuasca into his therapy, before he died. And the thing is I do like woo, and I am woo, like, I think, but I don't like woo. I don't like a lot of woo, because I think that about 95% of it is really projecting things onto other people, onto animals, onto nature. They project and exploit. Woo is a product of Western culture, and so it kind of systemically pulls on all of this BS that comes from Western culture, and a lot of that. So a lot of woo turns into exploitation and misrepresenting things that people don't understand. Like, and I think ayahuasca is probably a great example of that. I don't really know a whole lot about it, but I've heard people say, like I met a guy from, anecdotal evidence. I met a guy from South America, and that's what he had to say was, yeah, like Indians are constantly exploiting white people. Like they'll just pretend to be shamans and just make up rituals. Like I don't know if that's true. I don't know how accurate that is, but it would not surprise me at all. Because there are tons of sharks hiding in Wu. It's just like a great place to be exploited or to be misrepresented.
Well, yeah, a lot of predators. Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or if you just want to be
right.
coerced, yeah. If you just want someone to control your life, go with the Wu.
Right. Absolutely. I mean those are important points that you bring up, and I like the way that you express them. That's fascinating. And so then, after your father got excommunicated, what happened in your life? And after you decided to leave the church?
Well, what I did was I well,
if you want to go into that.
So I was in high school. I lived in a year for a year in Japan, and then I came home. I went to an art magnet, started smoking weed, and I went to Evergreen State College, and I dropped out after like a quarter. And then I went and worked in retail, and I went back to Evergreen. Actually, yeah, I kind of took a hiatus, went back to Evergreen, dropped out again after like a year and a half, because I was abusing drugs basically, and like I had I was really good at school when I was in middle school and when I was in like 9th grade and 10th grade. And then after that, my grades kind of fell off, which I've heard is a really common pattern for adults who get a late diagnosis of ADHD, where they're really good students, and then when it comes to high school, college time, whoosh, gone. And that's what happened to me. And I might have had a chance had I not been abusing substances at that time. And so since that time, so I went to Evergreen, I went to UW. At Evergreen, I studied earth sciences, and also the humanities,
Wow.
just general humanities.
Cool.
But I didn't become an expert. I was there for like less than 2 years. Then I studied comparative religion at UW for like a year and a half. I also went to a few different community colleges. I worked in retail for 5 years. I took a few years off and lived with my mom, because I couldn't manage my life. And then I worked as a caregiver. It's the timeline. I'm simplifying the timeline, but I worked as a caregiver for 10 years. At first, I was just working as a plain old in-home caregiver, working with people who have disabilities, who just need help with tasks and that kind of thing. And then I worked as a direct support professional for 4 years, which meant that I was working with people with developmental disabilities, things like, neurological conditions and stuff like that, who need a bit more support behaviorally. And I really wanted to do that, and I was really passionate about that. But then doing that in the pandemic, it became way too much, because my clients couldn't do anything, and so they were constantly frustrated. And I think I was kind of, I think that because I'm neurodivergent, like that I wasn't the right person for that job, basically. And I got fired, and So I've been unemployed. I'm not unemployed now, technically. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't think I'm unemployed. I don't know how to define this, but I just got a bunch of money from my dad's estate, so I'm officially declaring myself a content creator.
That's great.
So I'm going to like really focus on full-time creating content having to do with this, and for as long as I'm able to, and then if I can't do that, like if I start to run out of time and I'm still not making money, then I'll go and find just a regular job. But what I'm hoping to do is to figure out a way to actually get revenue streams from the internet using UFO and unexplained content.
Good
And
for
that's my
you.
life story. That's what happened directly after those specific events.
Wow. But I mean, do you feel though that, I mean, your family overall was supportive of you in your decision to leave the church and your decision to transition? I mean, what were
well, yeah, they were supportive of me leaving the church. But
and if that's too personal,
the thing about no, it's not actually. I'm just trying to think about how I want to talk about it.
okay.
I think that most people, most trans and non-binary or genderqueer, gender non-conforming people, I think they have to go through a kind of adjustment phase with their family. And in a lot of cases, and this is pretty well backed up by a few different studies, but it's also something that I've heard from people a number of times, is that trans kids get treated the way that gay kids, in homophobic families get treated. In other words, they get kicked out, right? For me, that adjustment phase was like me like convincing my family, basically that what I was saying was true, that I'm not just doing this for giggles, I actually am. I do identify as a woman. I've always felt like a girl since I was very young, and I understand why that happened. I have a lot of compassion. I love my mother. Actually, my mother is awesome, and she loves me despite all of the crap that I put her through. She's amazing. She's a librarian, which pretty much librarians are pretty much they're the coolest people in the world. We need some good adventure, not just like none of that like low budge like the librarian. No, we need like HBO like drama 6 seasons all about librarians, because librarians are freaking awesome people. But I'm sorry, I totally got sidetracked again. I don't remember what your question was.
Well, you know what? No, I mean, I just think of how your family kind of treated you through these different times in life. And I will say,
yeah.
I mean, all of us, I mean, life is such a trip, and we go through different phases. And I think for both you and me, we both, with the Mormon Church, the LDS faith, we saw ways in which we weren't being supported or listened to as human beings. And so I think that this, and with you and what your experience, that's a very difficult thing, especially now in our society. And so I definitely commend you for talking about this and sharing your feelings and your experience. That's a hard thing to do. And thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much for saying that. So I really do want to answer your question. I just forgot what it was for a moment. But yes. Okay. So yeah. My mom, she had a really hard time getting accustomed to the idea of me being trans. And I totally get that. And I have a lot of compassion for moms who have to deal with that, because it is a transition. Because the thing is that when I think that when you spend a lot of time around someone, it creates this version of them, of you in their head, and that's kind of it becomes hardwired through the magic of neuroplasticity. I'm not a neurologist. I'm just imagine that's how it probably works. But in our minds, we construct models of other people, and those models then they become our internal reality, right? It's a simulation of other people, and and a mom can't help but do that to their kids that's just because that's what a human mother does. And so, like, yeah, I totally get it. But at the same time, though, when I first came out to her, I was kind of like, it's really surprising to me that you don't understand this, because I thought that you would be the first person to understand this, because my mom and I have always been really close, um, and so I felt like it was really kind of surprising, actually, because every single one of my members of my family had some issue with me being trans. They weren't like super transphobic or anything. They just didn't understand what it means to be trans, like, because they're not trans, and most people are not trans. So but yeah, like my mom she's a Jack Mormon. I think she calls herself a Jack Mormon. She doesn't like drink or smoke or anything like that, but she's not really part of the church anymore either. And I think yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think she's always been really a little bit critical of the church, much more so now that she's older. But I think, because my dad was always critical of the church too.
And I have to ask you too, because, I mean, I look around in the UFO world, and I look at the fact that it's very obviously there's a lot of conspiracy. There is a lot of, even though you would think this would be a topic that is about enlightenment, as a lot of people claim, about acceptance, about ushering in a new world, where we're protecting the environment, where we care about other human beings. Instead, it is, 99% of it is laced with ideology and human beings that are inherently have some real issues with other people. People who are very racist, people who are supporting the Nazi agenda, people who are burning books, people who are discriminating against all sorts of people, and unfortunately, transgenders, that's the top of the list, and it's also a big target to fuel misinformation and hate. And so that is something, that as just as a human being, that bothers me so much. That goes to the root of why I left. I didn't feel like I could be a member of the church anymore. And I will just give a little disclaimer there, even though there are many, many people involved, like you said as well, who are good human beings, who would, that wouldn't even be a part of their thought process. They would be loving and kind to anyone. And so, how do you feel when you get into when you're in this UFO paranormal community? And I mean, have you experienced any blowback or anything because of these specific types of hateful people?
Well, I like to live in my bubble.
Good.
When I first got on Twitter, I was just kind of I was like, I'm gonna try to just follow all sorts of people, even the people that I can't stand like at all, and but yeah, that was a terrible idea. Now I just really try to follow only like people that that are in my cultural
Good.
domain.
Good.
But because like if someone shows up in my feed that says something in my feed that and it's like, especially if it's like someone that's their whole agenda is to be transphobic or to promote alien abduction investigation techniques that are coercive, and manipulative. Like that's not, I don't think that's quite as bad as transphobia. Like, because like a lot of transphobia is literally just like people killing trans women. That's the thing that happens on a global scale. I mean, it's not like millions of people or anything like that, but yeah, like on a day, if it's a day, then it's probably a day that it happens. Like, but yeah, if someone like that shows up in my feed, then I might straight up debate them, and then I'll block them basically. And but I'll just be very. I've done this 2 times with my new Twitter account, and I haven't had any internal issues with it. It hasn't caused me any great amount of stress. So, but yeah, I think that's the way I like to talk. I've been doing that a long time, where I'll debate people online, and I think the whole idea is just to really just stick to the facts, stick to the words, and not get caught up in feelings as much as possible, and you'll be fine. It doesn't really matter which way it goes either.
And I think and I appreciate that. And I know, like, for me, I have gotten involved, on Twitter or social media, with people who are clearly, well, if they're even people, who knows at the end of the day, but, where you try to be accepting and to create, just a dialogue, just an important dialogue about things where, you're not, you're accessible, you're talking to people, and I think that's really important. But there does come a point when you, for your own mental health and for your own, well-being, it's like, okay, these people are clearly not willing to discuss things rationally. They're clearly living in out of touch. They've have just, I mean, they've been manipulated into buying a narrative that is not accurate, and that narrative is sponsored by a group of people who have a lot of money and a very specific agenda, and that agenda is not it doesn't bode well for women, for people who are trans, for people who are anything other than good old white stock. And I mean, that is just, that's plain and simple, and that's frightening. And so I want to say, for those of you who are listening to my show who are kind of, I mean, that you have some of those thoughts of, okay, I'm out of here, I'm not going to listen to this. I want to just say, we're here, I'm here. We are all in a position where we have to be loving and kind and supportive. And there's so much disinformation out there right now, and people are getting hurt, and this is incredibly alarming. And if you're not a good human being and you can't accept people for who they are, then seriously, don't listen to my show. This is not the show for you. So I'm just going out, and I just want to say that because, yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, no, I love that. Like, I totally, yeah. That's exactly how I feel. I mean, and there actually are, interest groups. They're right wing and fascist interest groups. Like, that's not like a conspiracy theory or something.
No,
that's actual a thing. Yeah, and it's not just in UFOs. It's there's a lot of this like LGB crap. Like they're also funded by interest groups like that.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, and thank you, Gracie. But it's that it is. I think this is a lesson that I've learned in the study of UFOs and the paranormal and all of these things. It's like, okay, you can't take any of this at face value. And you always have to, like, if somebody's making a statement, you have to look at the group of people that are behind them, surrounding them, the people that they're choosing to support. You have to look at the broader themes in the messages. You also have to look at the way that, especially in like the UFO community, but you mentioned this, it's not exclusive to the UFO community, but there is a very common theme in the way ideas are presented and specific talking points that make it, out there. You can turn on the History Channel and see every single show on there has specific talking points, even if they're about different subjects. You can, go, well, I guess to a school board meeting now and listen to some of these talking points that really lack substance and knowledge about specific situations. And that really is it's shocking and it's sad. And people have to, especially in the UFO paranormal world, you have to make sure that you are looking at people's motivations, you're looking at their alignment, you're looking at different media sources that are promoting their stories, and then go a little bit deeper and also understand who owns the publications where these stories are being told. Because that right there, it's the big money sources that are steering a particular narrative, and that's what everybody needs to be aware of, and not just take people at face value because, oh, they're promoting UFOs or they're promoting this. No, there's an agenda, and people need to pay attention to that. So
yeah, and I mean, yeah, like Varieties of Anomalous Experience, that's published by the APA, and the APA is a really big organization, and they also have their own interests. Although they're supposed to be a scientific organization, they're made up of, that's an organization made up of people who publishes books, right? And there's a lot of known systemic problems with the APA. I have a lot of problems with, the DSM, and a lot of people have problems with the DSM, even the latest DSM 5 TR or whatever, there's a lot of problems with the APA. But I also think, I agree with you for sure, but I also think, that's a really good book, because I'm judging it on the contents, and it doesn't seem like they're just being like, hey, we're APA party liners. They're just writing a book about sciencey stuff. But yeah, I think that you're right. Like if a book is published by MUFON, it's like, yeah. And also another thing that I've noticed is that debating people and reading articles online or whatever, you often seeing what kinds of arguments people make and how they respond to your arguments is really interesting, because they, because you'll see that that if someone just keeps talking past you, and they don't seem to be understanding anything that you're saying, I think that that's often a sign that they're not really paying attention to the argument so much. They're more trying to pay attention to this, pushing the specific agenda. And a lot of times people will use these really flimsy arguments, and it'll be like a bunch of people using the same argument. And I don't know exactly why that happens, but it does feel like it's just a bunch of people just repeating arguments that they heard from someone else, that has more, that's, that they follow, basically. Some influencer, comes up with some really crappy argument, and then like a bunch of people start repeating it, and then, but yeah, if they're if they're someone who's like constantly promoting transphobic ideas, it's the arguments they always run in the same way, where it's like, well, you're not really considering the words that I'm saying. You're just really kind of saying what you want to say and then telling me what I'm saying.
Right. I love that. I mean, that's geez, I see that all the time, and I think that's a really great point.
Yeah.
And I also, I've been, I watch different influencers, quote unquote, who've kind of come out of nowhere, and they're again promoting those specific talking points. I think Jordan Peterson is one of them that really kind of sets my spidey senses off. I think Joe Rogan is another one of those people who is really he's yeah. I mean, he again makes my skin crawl. I don't, and it's very subtle the way people can promote things, and that's like marketing. That's business. You're promoting an idea, and hey, everybody, we're cool, bro, hanging out and showing our American flags, and we're talking about this, but then we're going to seed it with a little bit of extra testosterone, or I am a patriot, or I am, you know again, the same types of phrases that, Lou Elizondo, different people, Joe Rogan, George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, the same players in the UFO world are, all very good at using the same types of wording, probably because they're all on the same payroll or have the same agenda. But it is.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, that's the thing that struck me when I was younger, and I didn't understand it until really getting involved in Twitter, because I'd never really been involved in the UFO world. I've always been kind of an outsider until last year. I mean, I kind of was,
Yeah.
because I had this crazy blog like a long time ago, and I was doing a lot of UFO research about 10 years ago, around a decade ago, because I had found the Heston lights on YouTube in like 2008, and I was just like, well, there you go. There's some sort of weird thing in the sky. I knew it. I knew it all along. that's what I wanted. I wanted the real thing. That maybe they're not UFOs technically speaking. I don't know. I'm holding out hope though that there's some orbs, because if it's like a bubble or something, that is clearly an object. So it meets all the criteria. Maybe it's not intelligently controlled, but that's never how I defined flying anyway.
So, and that's funny that you've like gravitated towards the same thing. You probably saw the great documentary about Hesstallen, the
The
Hesstallen lights,
portal. Yeah,
the portal. Yep.
yeah. I didn't. I don't buy the woo though. So like Massimo Teodorani, I don't really, or Gregory Little on the other day on the Mind Escape, as within, so without, or whatever. I don't think that plasmas are living. I don't think, I don't, I think that Persinger's idea might be kind of right, that there could be like electromagnetic effects that could hypothetically, cause some sort of anomalous experience sometimes, but it would be extremely rare. And it's like, how would you even filter something like that out, out of the data? It's really hard to study something like that.
Well, and it's interesting, and I want to just say, I have my friend here from Norway who lives in Hesstallen right there. So Helga, nice to see you, and thank you always for your beautiful photos. So just the second that we were mentioning the Hesstallen light phenomenon, there you are. This is so great. But
Yeah, I love the Heston lights.
oh my gosh, you know what, that will always be like one of my favorite trips. I can't wait to go back to Norway. Like I really can't wait to go over to the UK. I know I keep threatening this, people, but one of these days, watch out, because Mama is coming over there, and it'll be exciting as always. But let's talk a little bit about Michael Persinger, because he is was an interesting man who was involved with the God helmet and different things. Can you give us a little bit of background on who he was and what his research was about?
I want to quickly go back to your previous question, because I am obsessively weird. But yeah, so actually, I don't even remember what the question was, but there was something I wanted to say, which is that I was really an outsider to the UFO world until last year. And back in the day, I was kind of like, okay, there's something going on with the whole people keep saying like the same kinds of things,
Mhm.
you know, like people would, you know, like I can't think of any, well, more contemporary. Actually, no, this goes way back too. I think is like because in that video you posted on Twitter, I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about EBEs, right? And that's being like kind of
John Lear
floating
and
around,
George Knapp.
like
Yep.
yeah, like Rick Doty talks about that, like they're just random people talk about that, and it's like, so why do you keep talking about these same exact stories that everyone knows are false? And it's like always the same sorts of people who are doing the same sorts of things, and they're in the same organizations. And I was aware of that, like, but I didn't understand it. Like I was just like, there's just a bunch of people that all believe the same dumb thing for some reason. Like, but you know, now it's just like, yeah, this is MUFON is a religion. It's a religious organization. That's the way that I see it. And the fact of the matter is, religion is too loosely defined for our legal system to deal with it.
That's probably why they
That's
get all the
really
tax
what I
breaks.
yeah, that's really what I feel. That's my theory of the MUFON phenomenon today. Maybe probably always, but yeah, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, no,
And
you do. I mean,
but
you're spot on when you, and that's great that you had the foresight to get in and look at the people, the players that are specifically siding with and have made money from the likes of Robert Bigelow, who funds all sorts of things.
right,
To do what nobody
Bigelow's
knows. But
days.
anyway, he certainly hasn't made a concrete contribution to anything other than spinning narratives, thanks to his front man George Knapp and then his minion Jeremy Corbell and Linda Moulton Howe and the same group of people, John Lear. That's the video that I posted of Knapp interviewing John Lear and just promoting absolute garbage, which for a journalist, I can't journalist. I'll use that loosely. I understand that some of the people in the Las Vegas journalism scene aren't taken as seriously, which is unfortunate because there are many good dedicated journalists in the world who do their due diligence and don't promote garbage like George Knapp. So it is, and the EBE thing, the Linda Moulton Howe, and all of this stuff. You just look at it and go, "Oh my Lord." That's
Yeah,
certainly stellar.
it's it's a really interesting, beautiful world we live in. But yeah, Michael Persinger, is it Persinger? I don't know.
Kissinger, yep.
Okay.
Well, whichever way is right for now.
Well, I've heard him, come up with a whole bunch of theories. I'm not an expert or anything like that on that, but yeah, he did. But he's most well known for the Corin helmet experiments that he did, that, as far as I understand, have not been replicated. Now, I know there is like folk, use of Corin helmets, which that's cool. I think that I'm all for that, but I'm wondering if you know I haven't actually looked at the folk. Like I haven't looked how people who just buy it offline use the Corin helmet and what kind. I've never actually looked at that. It would be interesting to look at that, And it would also be, I would try something like that too. I would be interested in trying it, what I would really be interested in trying, because the science does support this substantially, is the transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS. Specific, like if you specifically use TMS, there's a bunch of literature on case studies, and also initially it was just like like a handful of case studies, but now there's like a lot of data on using TMS on the right temporoparietal junction, which is like here somewhere, I think. It's the junction between the temporal and parietal lobes. It's close to kind of the amygdala and hippocampus, but that has like they would use that to treat temporal lobe epilepsy, the medical diagnosis, and so, but they've also, I think, used it a little bit experimentally on patients with schizophrenia and with autism. But
talk about MK Ultra. There you go.
Well, it's not really a trip. What happens is, although it is kind of related to some of the experiences that people have on trips, like the kind of there's a dissolution of self. In these experiences specifically, what happens is actually the person will experience a body double, so kind of like a doppelganger, or they'll experience an out-of-body experience. They'll experience some form of depersonalization, basically. And that depersonalization, happens when that specific place is activated. And I think that the science has gotten to the point where they've done a bunch of fMRI studies while also generating like body double illusions, which is really easy to do using like a virtual reality simulator, because you can just take video feed of the person from behind. So they have a camera behind them and then they're seeing themselves, delay it slightly, and it creates the same effect, right? So I haven't read all of the research, but I believe that probably what they did was, I'm pretty sure they did do this. That they did they did. They did fMRI studies while doing that. Somehow they didn't use that method because fMRI is like has giant electromagnets in it, but they were able to get a causal correlation, right? To say the right TPJ has, if you mess with it specifically, it creates these experiences, but also it becomes activated if those experiences are happening. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's a very strong connection. I think that when we think about the mind, we need to think about the mind separately from the brain, right? And if we think about the person, we need to think about the person as separate from the body. People are real, but people are not real in the same way that our bodies are real, right? And, there's this kind of epistemic issue that I've noticed of, people being like, the human sciences aren't real sciences. No, they are real sciences because humans are real. and it's really, really important that we should be studying them right now. We shouldn't be studying ways of building new machines that cause global climate change to get worse, or cause all these like systemic like psychosocial issues, like widespread anxiety and paranoia, broken media. We need to be putting all of our STEM research into anthropology, into psychology, into sociology, into comparative religion. That's how I feel. Sorry, I'm kind of talking loudly.
No, I love it. I think this is great. This is exactly, why I wanted to have you on the show. And so I want to just, go back to Persinger for a second, because it is interesting. I just Googled his name and found a picture of him standing in front of MRIs. And that image, to me, the first thing I think about is Dr. Kit Green standing in front of, pictures of fMRIs. And it also makes me think about the goings-ons at Skinwalker Ranch, but I think probably Kit is probably much lower on that totem pole of what he was actually doing. But it is interesting that you have somebody that is experimenting with things like with a person's perception of reality. And to me, that it's really kind of, it sparks my thought about MK Ultra. and what we were willing to do and who we were willing to test in the process.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just like
Yeah.
with LSD and things. So I don't know. I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure.
Like I said, I'm not an expert on Persinger specifically. I know he's done a lot of work over the years.
Hmm.
Um, but I know that he had a couple other one of his big theories was these what was it? I can't remember what they're called. Like well, anyway, a big component of it is tectonic strain theory, which is that it's kind of like earthquake lights theory, where these lights are created by crystals getting smushed, or some sort of ejection of radiation from the Earth, caused by seismic activity, and like so the tectonic strain theory is kind of like saying, well, maybe these kind of anomalies happen all the time, and they're not caused just by earthquakes, but just by strain, and like just they're and they cause UFOs kind of, or they'll just cause anomalous things like poltergeists, right? So I think Persinger was one of those people who wanted to really create like a UFT for the paranormal, using physical sciences. But I saw him do this lecture at like Microsoft or something like that, and he was talking about, the afterlife, where he's basically arguing that, the Earth's electromagnetic field contains the information of people after they die, pretty much. And I don't really think that that scientists should be putting forth these kinds of theories. I mean, that aren't really well supported on every single level. Um, and I don't think that I would not. I think that the afterlife and non-human intelligence, I don't think that we're like at a point in science where we can put those forth as hypotheses, really. And the reason why I say that is basically because of Occam's razor. That it's never the most parsimonious explanation, but also, it's there's always a million other explanations, that could be way crazier, or, not as crazy, but still really crazy, Like I was reading Marcello Truzzi today. I just had posted a quote from his paper on the extraordinary. I can't remember the full title, but he's talking about, oh yeah, like extraordinary claims. He's talking about this idea of like extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and he's trying to systematically figure out what that means, like in terms of methods for studying the unexplained.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically like the paranormal. He uses a lot of examples of psi and stuff like that, and he said, like, and if you get to the point where an event that is extraordinary, that seems extraordinary, right? I'm kind of paraphrasing because I can't get all the way through his thought process, but if you get an event that's extraordinary, you want, and you run out of ordinary explanations for that event, right? So you've eliminated all the possibilities that are ordinary, then you're not just left with aliens. Like that's
Right.
never just the only thing. Like
Right.
it's always like there's always a ton of other things that you can think of, all weird. I mean, that's what I love about high strangeness is trying to think of like, what the heck, like but really what I love is like, when I was a kid, I think what I really wanted to know about UFOs, because I was into monsters when I was a kid, like when I was really young. I was into monsters. So when I got into UFOs, you know, I was the kind of kid that wanted a monster saucer, you know, like as in, and the way that I comprehended that at the age of like 9, I think, or 8 or something, was, you know, like an animal, right? That maybe comes from space, or maybe it hides out in the water, you know, who knows? But yeah, I wanted, like, I had this idea that maybe saucers are real, but like, come on, there's like a spaceship from a sci-fi TV show. Like, what?
Good point.
This doesn't make any sense. Like, I was always that kind of like, you know, because I remember reading Douglas Adams when I was really, really young, you know, and he draws from a really ancient tradition of absurd satire, you know, in the Western world. This isn't, Douglas Adams didn't invent this stuff, you know. No, you know, this goes back like thousands of years. Lucian's true story, you know, is a classic novel. I mean, I think it would probably not qualify as a novel today, but yeah, that goes almost back to the time of Christ. Ancient, high technology. Uh, but yeah, I was reading Douglas Adams when I was really young, and like Michael Crichton, stuff like that. So I you know, it always bugged me how in Star Trek, like, it's not all like, the aliens aren't all like weird tentacle beings, you know, they're all just humanoid. That always kind of bugged me. And so,
Right.
you know, for me, and I mean, I read Mostly Harmless when it came out, and I think that he actually explicitly it makes, yeah, I don't remember the plot very well, but is it Mostly Harmless? I don't remember. It's the later one, where, like, it's the one with the planet Rupert in it. There's this 10th planet called Rupert, and there's like this character ends up, she's a journalist. It's like, there's a woman journalist, and she ends up on this planet with these aliens, and she gets like all this videotape of it, and then brings it back to Earth, and it's like just really phony looking, like like all these cardboard sets, and the aliens look totally fake, and she's like, what? Why does why does it look like this? You know. And so, yeah, when I was a really young kid, I think, thinking back on it, yeah, you know, because I was watching Star Trek, you know, and I learned a lot of critical thinking skills from my dad, which is kind of weird because my dad was really into the woo. Like, you know, like, he made a lot of arguments that looking back on them, I was like, that doesn't make any sense at all. but I love him, and he actually, you know, he really instilled in me a lot of really important values, and, you know, he was a chaplain, so, you know, the reason I think I have a lot of interest in religion is because of him. He wrote a couple of books published by Llewellyn, you know, so.
Really?
Yeah, and he was a psychologist too.
Okay, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm. He was not a research psychologist, but he did like crisis and worked in therapy.
So what publications?
So I was born in California, and then we kind of moved around. I was a military brat. My dad was in the military. My sister, still in the service. She's career. She flies helicopters, and I love my sister. I love my whole family, obviously, but my sister is super cool. Yeah, so I lived in California, New Jersey, and now I live in Portland, Oregon. We moved to Vancouver, Washington, way back in the day, and so I've lived in the Pacific Northwest since I was like 9, except for when I lived in Japan. I lived in Seattle, Olympia.
Dang. And so, like, what did he write?
he wrote a book about Finnish magic. I'm sorry. I'm laughing at him, but he's great. And the book is, I love the book actually, because it's, it's just him being him, and he was really into the Finns and Kalevala, because we had on his side of the family, like way back in the day, like when our first American ancestors came over, they were Finns. The Matsons. Nils Matson was the first. Was where the name Nelson comes from, and so Margaret Matson was a witch. She was tried as a witch, and she bragged in court that's like she flew on a broomstick or something like that. And he wrote a book about what's that?
Hey, that's always good to pull that in court.
Yeah. And he also wrote a book about I can't remember what the other book. I feel bad. I'm really bad at reading. I struggle to. I'm not. It's just it's hard for me to do. I don't know why. It's hard for me to read books, but I try my best. And so I haven't read both of his books, but.
And so then
I have both of them.
So your
I have a bunch of his stuff actually.
I mean, so were they LDS? How far back did the LDS faith go?
Well, the Matsons, they came over in like I want to say the 17th century, way back. This was during the witch trials. I think that actually William Penn, yeah, this would be like, yeah, I don't know a lot about all of the details of my history, but we did do a lot of genealogy, especially my dad. He loved doing that. I think that was his favorite part about being in the church, was doing genealogy. So we actually got a lot of records because of him, and he did a lot of really great research. In fact, we went to like a bunch of places just to find historical records, which I always thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. And you kind of got me off on a little kick here, because I've gone back and I found my great-great-grandfather's journal entries, and he came over. Oh my gosh, he was approached by somebody in the Mormon church. He was over in Denmark, and then he came over. He was a convert and baptized and came over, and then he was in the quorum of the 70, but it was and I'm trying to do more digging into this, but he was one of his friends was Brigham Young, who married him to two of his wives. And so, it was like, it was very interesting. And he actually owned a lot of land, which he ended up donating to the LDS church and things. And so I love, to me, it's fascinating to go back and look at my genealogy and just see some of these people in history that, that I'm related to. I think it's cool. It's fascinating.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is, but I'm really bad with that stuff. I'm glad that I'm into UFOs, because if I wasn't into UFOs, then I wouldn't know anything about history. I mostly, I think, even like reading about antiquities and stuff like that, a big part of the reason that I'm motivated to do that is not because of the myths, or like to find out about the cool, I don't know, lore or whatever. It's really to find connections with the paranormal and the unexplained. That's my favorite reason, is just to be like, how do I connect this to the unexplained? And because there are a lot of connections. I mean, they're not necessarily clearly linked, but you get that atmosphere, and I really like that. So yeah, all of my Oh, I wanted to say also that my dad, he he actually wrote a family history, so I have that. So I
Oh,
should.
that's cool.
I've been meaning to go through all of this stuff and figure that out because I want to do something with that in the future. Um, it would be really cool to to create to edit what he made, just try to keep it as consistent as possible, but then add something to it,
That would be really
that's
neat. That
separate.
would be
Yeah,
cool. I like that.
but yeah, yeah,
Wow.
I
We're gonna have to definitely have more conversations about. We see there's so much to talk about. Just with, I mean, we have a lot of similarities and things, and I want
it's
to
true.
really quickly. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just want to go back and read a little bit of the comments in chat. And Amy Collins is always she always provides very interesting and useful commentary. And she was mentioning that the Soviets did similar things. We were talking about Persinger spewing meaningless statistics or talking about active programs in the realm of ambiguous theory. The writing form was almost an art. And then she
Huh.
just goes on to say what Rachel is saying. This is the reason we have peer-reviewed papers that nobody reads except other paper writers. Except, excuse me, if I could read, I would be really happy. Except other paper writers. Okay, yes, I got that correct. I'm sorry.
That's
And then she
yeah,
goes on and just makes again just more wonderful comments. And so I encourage people who are watching this on cell phone or watching it on the TV to go back and look at some of the comments in chat because like with I appreciate the things that you've said, and I want you all that are listening and you are in chat to know that if I don't respond in chat, I apologize, but I am reading your messages and I do appreciate your thoughtful comments. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you. And thanks, Amy
yeah,
and
no.
Michael. I love Michael's
Amy,
comments too. So
Amy's always got really smart stuff to say for sure.
yes, she
Yeah,
does.
I'm sorry I'm not following the chat, y'all. It's
No, it's hard to
harder
it's
than I
hard to
thought it
do
would
all
be.
these things. I mean, it's like you're being interviewed and then you've got to keep up with chat and things. And so I know for me, it's like, oh my gosh, multitasking. It's a special thing. So, but I just want to give a shout out to everybody that has been in there and making great comments. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
well,
it.
I wanted to, I really wanted to just shout out to everybody out there. Campbell Morera, huge, awesome, very supportive guy, plasma guy, which is the best kind of guy. I mean, come on, think about it. Would you just have a regular guy or a plasma guy? Also, Jeff Strange. The guy's awesome. I would definitely like to interview you sometime. Jeff Knox, of course. Leah Prime. Uh, Michael Huntington. Simon Fly. I'm trying to name everybody, because I really love this community. It fills my heart, my lonely UFO heart, so much every day to know that there's so many people out there that are into UFOs and that don't buy the BS. I think that's so awesome. And yeah, I think that I love this community. It's just that is my point.
Well, that's very nice. That's a positive thing to say, and I'm really happy that we've formed a community that isn't of the community, because the overall arching community is definitely needs a lot of help for sure, and
Yeah,
they should be
yeah,
asking critical questions, which they're not because they're so excited to follow people around who are on all the TV shows and do different things. And I want to get to Peter, who is asking a question. If you could discuss UFO helicopter cases, he's thinking about your sister, but do you know anything about the coin 1973 or Cash Landrum?
yeah. Well, yeah, no, she's not really into UFOs. She doesn't know anything about that. I've talked to her a few times about it. I asked her about it periodically, and she just really doesn't have any interest in it. So she hasn't really had anything to say about it.
Well, it's a tough topic to broach with people,
I
especially.
mean, great question though. Shadowy spectrums. I think that, yeah, I would have asked the same question actually.
And too, like I know that I've over the years, I have friends in the military that are pretty high, have accomplished a lot in their careers, and you talk to them about these things, and they really have absolutely no interest, which
Mm-hmm.
is, which kind of makes me smile when you see somebody like David Grush or people like that are coming out and making these claims of uh, things that just are not based in reality and can't be verified at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, but it is interesting, yeah, to try to talk to people like that. So anyway, thanks for the question. Um, yeah. So okay, Divis, because we're going to get ready to wrap up the show and things, and you've been so patient with me over the past few weeks, and I just want to know, like, what your next. You're going to focus on doing social media and do that full time, which I think is fantastic. You've got some great skills at editing and putting things together and interviewing. And so, what's your next big project? What are you going to do?
Okay. Well, so right now what I'm working on is I'm doing the Earth with Telesma, which and the Earth and Telesma Bloorb's Earth Love Diary are, they're legendary. And I mean, not in the sense that like I'm legendary, but in the sense that like literally it's all legendary. So and I mean the goal of it of course is to create an enchantment to help re-enchant the world with fairy enchantment, to get rid of the BS human enchantment as much as possible, which is, we love humans, we don't want humans to go away, just the bad human juju. That's what we're working against. And so we're doing that through a legendary medium, which means, that we make claims, I do, Telesma does, that may not be true. And you probably shouldn't think that they're true. But that's what we're doing. And I'm also working on a project where I'm taking Jeff Knox's tweets and I'm just turning them into TikTok videos. And the goal of that is just to do that, to help promote UFO history and communicating facts about UFO history. I think Jeff Knox is an awesome researcher. He literally spends all of his time that he's able to, as far as I can understand, researching UFOs, and he does it. He mainly researches history, but he's also constantly reading science papers and stuff like that, and he's following all of the news. And he's got his UFO act together. Like it's incredibly inspiring, and so I want to like help promote him, because I think that he wants to get to a place where he's also has a Patreon, and I think he wants to eventually start a nonprofit or something. But he, yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm doing it, is to help support my friend, like just to promote his work. But another reason is just because his work is cool in that I can learn about UFOs all the time, and it helps keep up my own daily research practice a little bit, because I have to do some very minimal perfunctory research before doing an episode. And also, UFO history is awesome. It's the greatest history.
It is, yeah, it's fascinating in so many ways, and I think it is also fascinating to see the people that have researched and spent their whole lives researching this, and to know that they've either become more skeptical in their mindset, or they're willing to do where they want to live and die with their belief systems, because they've invested so much energy. And
Yeah.
I do think that there is an interesting kind of a hierarchy in the world of UFO history and different things, and that's an interesting subject that I think we'll have to to definitely dig into. But I am going
Yeah,
to, and I'm so sorry, Rachel, I have to end the show, I think, a few minutes early. I've been, I scratched my eye, which is so dumb, but anyway, and it is
I'm
absolutely killing me. And
sorry.
so, no, that's okay. And I'm
I'm
so sorry to end early, but I think I need to go get out of the light for a moment and just kind of regroup. And I'm sorry, I've been fluttering my little eyeballs so much. But
okay.
would
Well,
you would you come back again then, so we can continue this conversation and just chat some
yeah,
more? Okay.
absolutely. And yeah, I just wanted to say hi to everybody in the chat. Simon, Amy, Gracie, Shadowy. I don't know who's in there. Jack Brewer. Uh, I've been reading your book, The Grays Have Been Framed. It's a really good book. Other people.
Other people. Thank you,
All
other
right. Have a
people.
good night.
No,
I
no,
won't
I
keep you
really,
any.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate the
Excuse me.
wonderful interview that you did with me, and
Thank you.
everything. That was
Yeah.
really fun, and I enjoy talking to you and having you in my world now. So it'll
Yeah.
be fun to communicate with you more. And I'm sorry to bail out a little bit early, but I just think I need to just do that. So anyway, I appreciate you very
One.
much.
Yeah. Quick word. I just wanted. Yeah. Never mind. I don't have anything else to
No, no,
say.
no,
Have a good night.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to. I. I don't know. I like. I just feel like this community. We. You know, not just EFR, but all of it. This whole sort of domain that we have our own identity. We don't need to rely on MUFON, or How Put Off or whatever. We got our own community, and like I think that there's a huge exciting potential for that in the future. Like seriously. Like I think that like all of us together have so much vitality and intelligence and power in us and like as people and as a community, and I really believe that. But the NHI thing I'm pretty skeptical about.
You know what? And I appreciate that, and I think that is empowering. We do have our own community that we've been working at, for a long time, and I think it's important to find people like yourself and Jack and Peter and Simon and Leah and people that are, and Vanessa. I love Vanessa,
Yeah,
and some of the
Vanessa's
people that have
awesome.
been on my show, Aaron Gulias, and I mean, just that I am so fortunate to have a group of people that I've come into contact with as a result of this show. And that is a very, very powerful thing to help foster a sense of community and a sense that we will have, each other, and each other's back and we want integrity, because I think, unfortunately, now listen to me go, here I go, dang it. But I will address the other issue after in a minute. But I think that it is, that's powerful because we need that, because some of us have been out there on our own for a long time and have been subject to a lot of things that we never should have been subjected to. And so this is us creating a community for safety, for our own, uh, wellness, and for us to want to learn proper research and to make us better people. And I think that this is really critical. And so I'm very proud to have you in my sphere, and to have all of these other wonderful people that I've mentioned, because this is important to me, and I want all of us to be safe and have grand adventures while we're looking into these things. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Erica. I
Yeah,
really appreciate you having me on.
no, it's so much fun. And
It
I
really
wanted to
is.
say, no, I love it. Like, as much as we know that I complain about a lot of things, and there are a lot of things to, shine a spotlight on, but it's really wonderful to know people like yourself. And thank you. And where are the places people can find you?
Okay. Well, I need money, so you can find me on my Patreon. No, I'm just kidding. But I do have a Patreon. But yeah, no, you can find me on YouTube at my channel, The Earth. You can find me on at my Anchor pages, The Earth, Telesma Bloorb's Earth will Have Diary. You can find me on Twitter because I don't have any followers at this moment in time. So I feel like there's something else, but no, I think that's all of them. Yeah.
Okay. And I'll go back and link some of those in the show notes and things. So I appreciate that. And definitely it's been fun to follow you on Twitter and to see you in chat. And I appreciate you supporting the show. And are you on Skype at all?
I don't think so. No. I mean, I'm not.
Okay.
Sorry.
All
But
right.
yeah, I mean, if you want to Zoom or something sometime, that would be cool.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I know that Amy was definitely talking about that. And so, Michael, I also want to just say thank you for your nice comment. Let me just show this really quick because I'm glad that you found a place too. I'm glad that we've all found a place. That's really important. And thank you. And I also want to just go back here and say, Scott, I'm sorry you missed the show. I hate to throw you guys off because it was on Saturday, but and I appreciate you, Rachel, for being accommodating with that. But it's wonderful. So thank you for being here and taking your Saturday night and spending it with me. And I also want to thank everybody for listening to the show and supporting expandingfrontiersresearch.org. You can go there to check out our work. You can also go there as well to support the organization. And you can find me sometimes on Twitter and I have an old page, ufoclassified.com, that has my old shows. You can obviously YouTube here. You can go back many years thanks to Mario and my friends and listen to the old shows. So definitely do that. And please share information and let's get the word out there about Rachel's wonderful podcast that she's doing. And then also all of our friends that we've mentioned. And I appreciate that. So thank you, Rachel. And I will definitely hope you have a wonderful weekend, but I'll text you later and see what's happening.
Thank you, Erica.
Okay, thanks.
Have a good night.
You too. Take care. All right, guys, I will catch you next Friday. See ya. Have a good week.